Welcome back to Empower Her podcast. I'm so excited to be here today with Julie Cass. Her chapter in the book is chapter 13, Unmasked. Julie is a dynamic keynote speaker, multiple best-selling author, and recognized authority in wellness-based leadership. As former CEO of a multi-million dollar business venture and lifelong entrepreneur, Julie brings over 20 years of energetic real-life experience to her audiences. Welcome back to Empower Her podcast, your journey to authentic leadership. The greatest work you'll ever do is the work within. And this has been a specialty that we've been working with. We started a training company, a soft skill training company, because I realized those soft skills are the hardcore results in life. So I absolutely love what you have written. Have you ever been afraid of that quiet voice inside you, the one asking you to make a change? And I think this is a great place to start. What is that change? And then we'll jump into wearing a mask. Welcome, Julie Cass.
Thank you. So, you know, this is something I'm really passionate about because I think as women, we are naturally what I would call intuitive. And there's something about that intuition, but it's not necessarily as little girls what we were taught to turn the volume up on. In fact, for most of us, we were taught to comply or to conform or, to excel or do things a certain way. And when we do that over time, and to your point, aren't taught to actually use the tools that I say come from us, from God's source, whatever your faith is. But intuition is a massive tool that we have. And I think sometimes it can feel scary because we doubt ourselves. We question, is that the right thing to do? And we don't follow those natural instincts because what we listen to more, Catherine, is the voices in our head or the programs that we've been conditioned to believe in. And what I found in my own life, and I see this in my clients' life, is the more we listen to the conditioning or the programs or the stories that aren't ours, we pull ourselves farther out of our own alignment. And when we pull ourselves out of our own alignment, we start to dysregulate. We start to feel stress more. It starts to show up in our bodies sometimes as physical symptoms. We find ourselves just not smiling as much. And then one day we wake up and we go, wait a second, whose choices were all of these? And where am I? And do I have the courage to make the change to actually listen to myself, what my soul is telling me versus what my head is telling me I should do? And that definitely happened in my own life.
Mm. Can I ask what age were you? Because this isn't in the book, and this is why we did the podcast. We find out
Yeah.
extra bits and pieces, but you got to jump into the book to really, oh my gosh, to really immerse and to make the difference, I think. But what age were you when all those thoughts happened? Whose life is this? What happened? Is this what I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
doing? When did that happen?
Well, I think people in my life thought I was going crazy. I was in my, I want to say early to mid 20s. And most people would call it maybe a midlife crisis. Well, it wasn't my midlife, but I looked at it more as an awakening. And I remember at the time getting in touch a little bit more with spirituality. Not everything is what we see and hear in our 3D world, but going more towards feel, emotions, energy work. And at the time, I remember having a conversation. I was running a spa and wellness center. That was my first business that I owned and operated. And one of my practitioners did Reiki, and she's talking to me about energy work. And I remember picking up the book Four Agreements. She gave it to me, and just reading that, I was like, why has no one taught me about this before? It was always do more, do more, do more, excel, achieve. And it was never about like, how am I feeling? How am I regulating? What do these emotions even mean? And so it was the beginning of my awakening. And then I just became ravenous and studied everything you can imagine from, our just how our consciousness works and how we work with universal laws and how just that power and that infinite intelligence that we're part of, that when we actually use that in business, oh, it changes
Yeah.
everything. And I think for the first part of my life, I just didn't understand that. I wasn't aware of that. And it was this thing cracked open where I was like, well, I want to learn more. And 30 years later, I read and just dig deep into that practice of really understanding the power we have within us. And when we use it in leadership, when we use it as parents, when we use it in community, when we use it as business owners, it's we can work in flow versus and kind of in our power versus trying to
Yeah.
force everything,
Yeah. Yeah. Pushing everything uphill,
up the mountain.
up
Mhm.
the mountain, up the mountain. And so you were saying that was around 25, the
Yeah, I was
first
young.
awakening.
I was
Yeah.
I was I was into my marriage 4 years, and I had all the external success. Like I had built a seven-figure business in a year, five-star customer service, just
Yeah.
moved into a dream house. And then I had this moment where I'm like, I'm not happy. And then you feel guilty for not feeling happy because you've got this quote unquote great life that everything looks perfect on the outside. And that was a scary moment for me. I remember thinking, shit, what do I do? Like, do I listen to this voice or
Yeah.
do I
Yes. Is it
keep
something
going
that's
on this
trying to
trajectory?
break me down? Is it a voice that I can go, hey, that's not true. This is what it
Yeah.
is. Or
Yes.
did you look at it inside and did you not feel that this was the man that you wanted to be with? This was not the job that you wanted to do. Like what what happened at 25? What made you stop to go, this is nothing of what I
Yeah,
wanted?
the house of cards came down for me because I think when I got more in touch with my own spirituality and my own inner power, that was not about like I realized I was living so much of my life for validation and to please. And when I kind of just stopped, and it's always in the quiet. And that's why I do think a lot of us, we are very comfortable with being busy because busy distracts us. And I was aware, as much as I grew up confident, I was busy. And so it wasn't until that quiet, and I did my own deep dive. I did my yoga teacher training. I read books like the Bhagavad Gita, and I was just like, it opened my whole mind. And I made a leap of faith to changed my life like radically. I actually moved to California, and I left my job, I left my marriage. And I talk about this in my keynote, the confidence code. You can do all of that, and that took courage. But what I realized, and I talk about this in Unmasked, is you can do all of that, but that voice catches up with you. And even when you make radical changes, if we don't heal the internal programs, that aren't ours, if we don't rewire some of that, then it still follows you. So, I have this saying, you take you with you everywhere you
Yeah.
go, right? And so even when you make drastic changes like I did, that's when I really started studying like neuroscience and the power of the subconscious mind and
Mm,
what are limiting beliefs, and how do we move away from those lower energies of guilt and shame and really step into our power. And that's the inner work I'm talking about. Like
yeah,
that's the inner journey.
that's interesting. So heading back, you've got a header here, rock bottom, fear and truth. When I finally voiced my desire for change to leave my marriage, my job, the reaction from friends and family was shock and a lot of judgment. Why would you
Yeah.
want to change anything? Your life's perfect, and on the outside, it looks that way. But what's made the truth so lonely? And it's interesting because I think a lot of people can be in marriages, can be in their life and feel lonely. And then you
Mhm.
have other people that are living by themselves and doing the life they want and not living lonely. And
And feel
so
fulfilled. Yeah.
it's interesting. Same pattern, new place, which is also what you've just been talking about. This was your mirror moment. You take you with you everywhere you go.
Mhm.
And I do
Yeah.
love that. I love what you just said. Change your environment all you want. The inner world follows you.
Mhm. And
So,
sometimes we do need to change our environment when
yeah.
we're in unhealthy situations. But what I've also learned is like deeper connection with your partner, with your friends. And I do believe a huge fulfilling part of life is connection. Connection with your colleagues, with your employees. It's your clients. Like I intimately work closely with my clients as a coach. I'm very connected to them. I don't know how to do that job and not be connected to
Yeah.
them. But in order to do that, the key is, and I talk about this in my first book, Me First, is we have to connect with ourselves on a deeper level. And so many of us are running from ourselves. Like we're distracted from self. And
Mm,
I really believe that that's the magic sauce. And we live in a world too, and I'm raising teenagers, Catherine, and I didn't grow up with the distractions that they have had since the time they were babies. So that self-regulation, that connecting to self, I believe is becoming more important and will become more important in our future than it ever has been. Because
mm,
we did it naturally as kids by playing outside, by being in the moment. We weren't on devices where we were pulled away from
yeah.
self.
Mm.
So I think that's becoming even more important, right? Like to
So,
have quiet time, to pause,
yeah.
to feel safe, to do nothing. And when you say that to a high achiever, it feels scary,
Totally,
right?
totally agree. So you had a decade of lessons. So what happened over that next decade? What did you do? So sold
Mm.
everything, left the
Yeah,
marriage,
so I moved
moved
to
to California.
yeah, and I worked for a woman who was wanted to open up another spa, and I that was in my skill set. So we opened up a spa salon and yoga studio. And I did that for a year and I loved it. And it was great because it was that thrill of opening a new business again. And then I made the decision to come back to Canada and I started my own consulting practice in the spa and wellness space, helping other owners for about 10 years actually. And my husband now still does that practice. Um, and and it was great because I was able to learn from so many different owner operators on the good, the bad, the ugly. And I
Mm,
think when you work as a consultant, you sort of get to see everything. And I've
mm.
also had the experience of running two businesses. Then fast forward, just long story short, my family business was a resort business. So we did golf, ski, corporate weddings, spa, and at the
And
time
I'm
it was
going to take you there in a second because I want to stick with this decade before you jump
sure,
into that because
yes,
that's really interesting. And that is the next part, listeners, that you are going to love to hear. But just before that, so you started this business. When did you
yes.
meet your husband?
Well, I've known him for a very long time. We'd actually known each other since we were young, and I think our paths recrossed because we were on similar journeys of
Mm,
self-discovery, truthfully. And we both went through our own kind of awakening separate, which allowed us to see each other with different eyes.
wow.
And it was very interesting because it was definitely a connection that was, our wedding vows were not traditional. It was not obey. It was more, I will continue to work on myself in
Yeah.
order to be the best version of me. Like that was both of our wedding vows, and we
Yeah.
still hold each other accountable to that.
Mm,
So then, yeah, 2 kids later, becoming a mom in that time frame also is another awakening, I think, for anyone who's
yeah.
had children.
Yeah.
Because
And that was
nothing
in
like
that 10 years. That was in that 10
yes,
years. Yep. But
yes,
did you meet in California or was the draw card he was in Canada and you went back to Canada?
yes. Oh, he was in Canada. It was part of the draw
Yeah.
card to come back for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because during that time, you share a decade of lessons. You said that
Yes.
the best of it and the worst of it, of course, happens. Patterns emerge quickly. And this is in leadership. These are the sort of patterns that we see. Happy
Yes.
leaders build energized teams.
Yes.
Healthy leaders created resilient cultures. Leaders who
Yes.
genuinely cared inspired loyalty and performance. Leaders who were unpredictable created fear. And
Yeah.
I know a few of those leaders, they're
Mhm.
unpredictable and it creates amazing issues. Leaders who wore masks could not build trust.
Yeah.
And what masks do some of these leaders wear?
Well, I think part of it is, and it was really interesting in opening my second business in California. I think I know I was able to be more vulnerable, more transparent. I didn't have to pretend that I knew it all, and
Mm.
feel so insecure if I didn't know it all. And you let your guard down a little bit, you let your team see a bit more of your human side, and it flowed in a better way. It definitely did. And then coming back and doing the consulting and seeing leaders who were kind versus who were just harsh, or didn't lead with their heart center because they were leading from fear. And even some of my greatest mentors, I would watch and say, you're leading from fear right now, like you're using fear as a motivator,
Yeah.
which to me is so counterintuitive, because it actually creates for a very unproductive environment. When people feel afraid, they feel afraid to make a mistake. Guess what happens if you're afraid to make a mistake?
Mm.
Inactivity. Like
Yeah.
your amygdala starts to rage, and you go in fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
And so the best thing with leaders is when we can stand in our power and our true confidence, which is in here, not based on external validation, and be able to lead with heart to say, you know what? I I I don't know what the answer is here moving forward in this
Yeah.
moment. And or this is something I'm struggling with, but I'm going to get to the bottom with it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
as a leader, my team always knew I could make decisions, but
Mm.
it was when I let my guard down that I had to be perfect and know everything like this, that I know I step more into my power as a leader.
And I
Because
love
I
that
gave
because
them permission.
yeah, everyone's a resource. Like everyone on the team's a resource. And if the leader
Exactly.
feels that they know everything and they're not even
Exactly.
engaging their team, why employ them in the first place? They don't want to be a robot. And so I absolutely love that. And you've got some truth here. You said, here's the truth. I put energy and wellness first.
Well, I learned to do that.
You
Yes.
learned to do that. I worked with intention, not exhaustion. So this is what we want to talk about in a moment, what
Yeah.
happened. Um, because you've got your two young children and you
Yes.
were just saying you were called back to run the business.
Yeah. I was called back to run the business because I know I was in the best skill set and experience and position to do it. But it is so different when you lead from intention versus I'd been there. I did 7 days a week when I was starting out. I hit burnout. I could write a book on it. I mean, it was not sustainable. And I use intention every day in my business now. I wake up and I set an intention for my day. I set intentions for my week. I set intentions for my year. And I really believe in working more with the universal laws, where is when we our intention, what we put out there, our body then follows, versus go, be, do. And our energy is trying to catch up with that. So if we switch it on its head and say, if I can emotionally regulate, and just even a simple practice, Catherine, of taking a couple minutes before your feet hit the floor, just stay in bed when your eyes open. Just
Yeah.
stay in bed and set an intention. And simply by saying, today is going to be a great day. I have all the energy I need today. Like you're setting an intention for things going well, for things working in your favor, versus just being in reaction to, I'm going to deal with what I get. And for the first part of my leadership years, I was constantly it was like I was playing ping pong, just reacting to where the balls would come, versus getting myself in a better state to and set an intention where I felt like I was dictating more, versus just how much can I react? How much how many fingers can I hold up to keep this afloat, versus really being in my power. And
Yeah.
there's a big difference when we lead with intention, for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, I love that. Um, it's you've got a couple of other things here, a couple of other great tips. So you re-anchored your mission and identity, focused on growth opportunities, placed people in their zones of genius,
Oh yeah.
which is what we want to do. Everyone wants to work with their strengths, like putting someone into an area where it's not their strengths, your business doesn't grow like it should. I empowered leaders. I led with heart. I practiced the abundance mindset. And what a difference for your
Mm,
team. That first breath every morning, I'm always like, thanks God, I'm
yeah,
awake, I'm alive, yay.
yeah.
But I do a 10-10-10. So if I've got to get up early for something, I'll either set it half an hour earlier or I will just do a single intention, like you said, before my feet hit the ground. But I love that 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of reading, and 10 minutes of writing, journaling, because I was hopeless at, like, I am so grateful for so much, but it's always the same things I'm grateful for. Like, I cannot not be grateful for those things each day.
Yeah.
And so I found the practice of writing boring for that reason, because it's going to be the same thing every day. But
Yeah,
I have
yeah, I can see
learned to
that.
put a timer on for 10 minutes and to write for 10 minutes. And that's been
Mm,
great for me. Because
mm.
I actually do love writing. What a surprise. Got a few books
Yeah,
like
me
you,
too.
Julie. um, and then we're going to head into the whisper of a new calling. There was a whisper that
Mm,
began to rise 2017. Everything was thriving. The resort was
mhm,
booming. You set up that winery. Like, this is all in the book. It's so cool what you did. It's incredible. Our team was
mhm.
strong. Everything looked perfect. Uh-oh, this happened at 25. Uh-oh, what's happening now?
Well, patterns
Julie,
repeat themselves. I mean,
they do,
that's the,
Julie, it knocked you, it tapped you again. Julie, is
yeah,
this your dream or just what you're good at? Then you
yeah,
said, I knew now not to ignore that inner voice because people ignore it,
yeah,
ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. It keeps
yeah.
jumping up. My intuition told me something essential. I was
Hmm.
great at this work, but was it my purpose? Like, all of a
Was it
sudden
my
now, was
purpose?
it your purpose on the
Yeah,
planet? You've got everything,
yeah,
everything again. It was great that you
yeah.
didn't, it's great you didn't swap the whole lot this time, the husband, the house,
No, I didn't
and
stop that part. No, but I think for me, and it's so interesting you referencing that because I'm going through this with my daughter who's in university. And we were just having this conversation the other day about life. And she was like, Mom, I don't know what the future brings. I don't have it all figured out. And I was like, sweetie, none of us do. Like that's the journey. And I do believe like universe will always be bringing things to us that we can handle that help us with that growth. And when that whisper, we're always getting whispers. Some are bigger than others. This was another
yeah,
big one. And the thing is leading with those whispers, not from fear, but tapping into faith or trust. And I think when we have the courage to do that, we can make decisions that are more in alignment with ourselves. So that was the hardest and best decision I made. And
mm,
sometimes the best ones are the hardest.
mm,
When I was 22 and left, it was more like 24 and left everything. Best and hardest decision as well. Um, but it was a leap to walk away from the security, I mean, making really good money, and was on an upward trajectory, but also the guilt of wanting to create the legacy piece for my family, of maybe having my kids be able to take it, to have third generation run it, to be able to walk away from all of that was a lot. And what's interesting about that is it was tough. It was a really tough, and there wasn't a lot, like some of us were on this side and some of us we were divided as a family as to what to do. And then COVID hits a year after the sale, which we could never have predicted. And I believe sort of saved our family because, we weren't a diversified business. We had a lot of eggs in one basket, and it would have been very difficult to weather the storm. In Canada, we were shut down for one of the longest times. And when you're running a hotel that's open 365 days a year, it was like the doors were closed for months. And that at that time we had sold the business, and I remember thinking, I don't know if we would have survived that. So
yeah,
sometimes those inner voices and intuitions, as hard as you think, what am I doing, is this the right decision, lead us in, well, I always believe they would lead us in the right direction,
yeah,
but it's a journey. It's not a destination, and it's I think when we don't listen to it, we have an opportunity to listen to it again. Like we're always going to be present. Our intuition never goes away. It's always with us. And every day we make choices. Every day we
Mm,
get to tune into that. But
mm.
I think we can get better at it, you
Yeah, I
know?
think so too. I think every day we sort of go against some of the things we probably should do. You get a
Of
message,
course.
you should call that company, and you don't do it. You're like, oh, damn, I should have done that. And I
Or
hate
we
living,
procrastinate. Yes.
or you're just tired or something else comes up and then you've forgotten. You need to write it down, do it straight away. Um, but yeah, during that time too, 2018, all of a sudden I felt that we should live in the country because I did
Yeah.
so much traveling around the world. I wanted to come home to a bit more peace, but I had this feeling that, like, if something happened in the world, it'd be great to have a property that had four houses on it, so that if anything happened, the kids could come home, we could grow our own food and things like that. Why?
Amazing.
Why do you get that? And then I drew this
Where does
house.
that come from?
I drew a house, hadn't been to a real estate agent, hadn't looked at anything. And next minute, property comes into our email. Bizarre. And I
But
looked
it's
at it.
amazing.
I
It's
thought
amazing.
this looks great. And it had the extra buildings. I spoke to my husband. He didn't really want to do it. And 2 months later, it came into my emails again. And I showed him again. I said, let's just go out for a drive. So this is the first property we've looked at in 30 years. Well, we had a
Wow.
couple of investments that we had bought and sold, but we'd lived in one house for 30 years. The kids loved it. Well, we were very smart when we first built it. It was a house that could extend, and we built it with three bathrooms,
Mhm.
three toilets. It had four entertaining areas. It was a well-designed house that, we ended up having three children. I wasn't having children, so the whole thing just kept getting built on. But anyway, it was great. We had 1,000 squares. We were in town on the Sunshine Coast, probably only 15 minutes from the beach, 5 minutes from the beach. But there was just something that was sort of uh, edging me this way. We drove into the property. My husband looked at my face and he goes, oh my gosh, this looks like this is it. Like, we hadn't looked at anything. We drove through and the whole property opened up. It had been
You can
cleared. There was
feel
horse
it.
paddocks. There was the tree. I remember we pulled over and I walked up the path. I looked behind me and I saw kids running around laughing and having a really
Mm,
good time. Just had this nice energy. And it was the first CWA hall. So it had the tennis center and it had some areas, all set up, all ready to go, all houses being lived in. And I don't know, it was just felt like something that was right for our retirement. John had semi-retired. He wasn't really doing anything. He was doing my books for the business. And he always wanted to run property management. So we kind of had our own little property
mm,
management. And then COVID
amazing.
came, and what happened? The kids all needed to come home.
Yeah. And you
So
had the
there was a
place.
place for everyone. And we had 10 of us living on the property. So we were able
That's so
to
cool.
play tennis, go for walks, ride horse. We just had the best of times.
That's
And
the best thing. And you said something key, Catherine. It's like I do believe you can feel it in your body. Like that's the embodiment work. I know with every property we've bought, I get like I always call them like I get the
goosebumps.
tingles that run up the arms.
And I get
And
them right up my head and down.
right. And so when you tune into that, I believe we're always being guided. We can always tap into that infinite intelligence that we're a part of.
Yeah.
And that's the journey of getting from here and getting more into our body. And so even now, I'll say to my husband, that doesn't feel right in my body. Oh, that feels right in my body. And I
Yeah.
speak like that, like it's a different language. And that's part of the journey. It's what I try to teach my kids. It's like, how does that feel in your body when you're making that decision? Like, and I think if we dial into that more, but for most of us, we've shut that off. Like, it's like we're disconnected from
Yeah.
ourselves. Even though we're
Yeah.
in these bodies, we're disconnected from it, you know?
Yeah. It's really interesting. And look, over this, I think I started my training company back in 2009. And so I worked with a lot of CEOs that were men, and we'd be in the company, they'd be telling me things of what wasn't going right in the business. I'm sitting listening. Then they'd say something, I'm thinking, wow, that's it. Because I'd get these goosebumps from head to toe. No, that's
Yeah.
the area. But I wouldn't say, oh my gosh, I have goosebumps. This is what we have to focus on,
Yeah.
because I think you were mad, but that's where I would lead them to it. I think women are more intuitive. And so if
Yeah.
you are listening to this actually, sorry, jumping around, But it was interesting because a couple of men straight up read the book and said every man should read Empower Her.
I know, I love
Thought,
that.
how interesting is that? And I loved
Hmm.
it too because it gives a real insight to women going
Hmm.
through business, going through leadership, going through life with marriages, and men don't get married to want to break up either. So it's a great insight to so much, I think. But we
I
need
agree.
to wrap up the podcast as you do
I know, I could talk to you all night.
for our wonderful listeners. So I'm going to just jump into your three leadership tips, and then I'm going to get you to read page 145, coming home to yourself, just as we wrap up. So I just
You
want to
want me to
jump
read
into the,
that?
yeah, I'm going to jump into the leadership tips. We're going to do your question on the dice, and then I think I'll get you to read that as our ending because it's beautiful. All right, everyone out there, three leadership tips that Julie knows to be true. One, you are enough as you are.
Mm.
Say it until you believe it. Worthiness is the fuel of authentic leadership. Did you want to add anything else to that, Julie?
Yeah, working in emotional health, and even if all my coaching clients, I do a lot of EFT and hypnotherapy. And 99.9% of what pulls us out of our alignment is when we question our own worth. And if we can stop for one moment and realize how magical we are, like we're unique, there's no one like us on the planet. So our values, our thoughts, our intuition, our opinions, they matter. And it doesn't matter if we don't agree with other people, but it's to know that you are worthy. They are also worthy.
Yeah,
And I think that's a really big piece. And
yeah.
for me, my biggest thing as a leader is helping guide other people to see their own worth.
Mm.
Because when they do, it's amazing how we heal and we bloom. Truly.
Yeah. And whenever
Yeah.
I hear you are enough, I always think, yes, I'm enough. NUFF, we're all little nuffs running around. And I might be a
Yeah.
dancing nuff at one moment. I might be a happy nuff. I might be a smart
Yeah.
nuff. Um,
Yeah,
it's got a
totally.
bit of
Yeah.
fun that. One bit of fun with being enough. Um, Two, the more I care for my emotional and physical well-being, the more I can lead others. And you know what? We work a lot on the emotional, but boy, isn't it important for our physical as well to be healthy, to get us through, to carry us through, because we've got so much love, we've got great
Yeah.
ideas, we want to be here for our family. So it is our emotional well-being, which is hugely important. As you can see, I think there's one in four really suffering emotional health at the moment. But that physical health too, they go hand in hand. Body, mind, and soul, we have to
Oh,
look after.
yeah. The physical health part was probably what saved me through some of the most stressful times. Because we know I turned 50 this year, so it's become even more important to me. But if I look back into some of my most stressful days running the business, the days, and even now, the days I've done a physical activity in the morning, I'm always more resilient. I'm always more capable
Yes.
to deal with what I need to
Yeah.
deal with than if I haven't done that. I mean, it reduces cortisol, it increases
Yeah.
serotonin. There's science behind that for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're 50 this year. How dreadful.
I'm embracing it.
No, I'm just kidding. I just turned 60 this year.
Which is
Um,
amazing.
so yes, embrace it. I woke up and thought, "Oh, what would I do if I was 40?" So I rode a horse through the
Right.
hills galloping. There you go. Um,
Amazing.
Leadership is a growth journey. We rise together.
Hmm.
The more confident I am in myself, the more clearly I see the potential in others. Isn't that beautiful?
Hmm.
When we actually, I feel that can see our potential and we're using our potential, we can help others as well. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, as leaders, you should never feel threatened by your team. And I think as a leader who's confident, you want to surround yourself with geniuses. You want to surround yourself with people who know things more than you do or who excel in areas that you don't.
Yeah,
And that's a beautiful thing, right? So
so
yeah, it's
good.
interesting. It's interesting when you see leaders who maybe squash, not intentionally, but subconsciously will squash people's just their ability to excel. And it's like we never want to do that, right? We never want to worry about how that, like, to me, it's like the best captain is the one who can walk away and the ship is still going, like you've empowered your team to be able to do it better than you. That's the
Yeah.
best captain. So
Love that.
yeah.
Love that. So we're going to roll the dice before you get to read. So are
Okay.
you ready? You ready for your
Sure.
question?
Sure.
All right. Ooh,
6.
number 6. We haven't had a 6 question, so I wonder what that is. The legacy line. I think this is a great one for
Oh.
you. When
Hmm.
people speak your name years from now, what do you hope they say you stood for?
That is a good question. And it's interesting that it's a legacy piece because I've had to really change what my belief is on legacy. That I really stood for believing in the best versions of people and being able to see the not just see the best version of people, but that I was able to help people reach their full potential even when they couldn't see it themselves. Like that's my biggest legacy is
Yeah.
is for people to be able to feel that.
I
Yeah.
love that you see them, you believe in them, and you see that potential. It's interesting because, like you, I've got the conscious leader here. But my last chapter is the conscious currency. Your legacy is your true currency. It's what you transfer, and it's those
Yeah.
micro legacies that we transfer down through families. That your children would do something that you did, you were doing something that your mum did, and we have those macro
100%.
legacies. And it's just gorgeous once we start to look at that and to look into it. So I want to thank you for sharing that. And no doubt people will say that. I quite often wonder what our children will say about us.
I know. Yep,
That'd
it's
be that'd
true.
be interesting. All right, so we're coming to an end. I'm going to hand it over to you, Julie, just to read a short bit from the book called Coming Home to Yourself. Thank you.
My journey has taught me that leadership is not about titles or hours worked or achievements stacked. It is about peeling back the layers of conditioning, expectation, and fear until you return home to yourself. When you unmask, you don't lose anything, you gain everything. Because the world doesn't need more perfect leaders, it needs more authentic ones. Leaders willing to own their story, honor their worth, and lead from the inside out. And that journey, it begins with you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Julie Cass. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you in our book and on this journey with us, and to all our